Can we do away with this argument if it saves one life? If it saves one life, okay, well then you know what? Let's just permanently quarantine urban areas. Whoa. Meaning we'll just strip them of their rights. What? Because you would reduce crime. So Visa, MasterCard, American Express, they're now going to be tracking all gun purchases using this purchase code that they've set up. Yeah. And I'll get into why this is the case. But these are all major credit card companies, charge cards for people who are defenders of American Express. And of course, the left loves it. So who lobbied for this is important. But first, I just want you to understand and hear it straight from the horse's mouth.
Credit card companies or certain banks or other financial services providers who say to themselves, you know what, this is not the business we want to be in.
Exactly.
He looks like a painting with the eyes that follow you.
Do that.
He does. It's a ventriloquist dummy that came to life.
They can make that choice. And so and I'm sure there'll be debates about that. But the larger opportunity here for everybody who has children, who cares about teachers and Americans here. And yes, there may be 100 or 1,000 people annually who will be lawful citizens who will be inconvenienced by an extra phone call that they will have to take either from a credit card company or the police. But I would argue to you,
is his nose growing?
And I would argue to you that inconvenience, if it saves a life or it saves 50,
there it is
one of the most worthy trades that this country will ever undertake.
Can we do away with this argument if it saves one life? If it saves one life, okay, well then you know what? Let's just permanently quarantine urban areas. Whoa. Meaning we'll just strip them of their rights. What? Because you would reduce crime. By a significant degree, that's where, intergun related crime, especially that would help young black men, right? They're disproportionately killed by gun crime in inner cities. You can't do that. Why? Because it's a violation of rights. But it would save one life. It would save one life. The inconvenience of being targeted by the NSA, FBI, or intelligence communities as proxy arms of, I guess these credit card companies are proxy arms of our American intelligence communities. He says police. Notice that little bait and switch. You're not going to be called by the local police department. You go and you purchase or you do an FFL transfer with your Amex card, and the next thing you know, you're being rated like it's Mar-a-Lago.
This is pretty stupid, though, because his own argument doesn't work. He says that if you care about teachers, if you care about students, that you're going to do this. Obviously trying to pull on heartstrings for school shootings, which is a horrible thing. This wouldn't prevent a single one of them. This would be used after a shooting to see what happened, because somebody can walk in and buy a gun. It's not going to show up on Amex. It's going to ping that code. That's it. Not your purchase, not what you bought. I could go in there and buy goggles. I can go in there and buy all kinds of accessories for guns. I can buy ammunition. I can buy whatever I want.
Goggles?
And they won't, glasses.
It's weird to start with
glasses, goggles, whatever.
How many goggles purchases are you making? If you care about teachers, well, I do care about teachers. If you care about kids, well, I do care about kids. Then you're fine with your private information being reported by these credit card companies to the government, who can then target and prosecute you. By the way, we've had this in California. Just before we move on to why this is happening, in California, obviously, you have even ammo, for example, has to be tracked. Yeah. And you know who that affects most? It affects competitive shooters. Not mass shooters.
Right.
It affects competitive shooters. It affects hunters. It affects people who go out and their hobby is working with firearms. The truth is, if you see, most of the time, someone who has that many firearms and that much ammo, it doesn't really necessarily mean that they're a prepper. They're just people who are meticulous about their firearms. These are the people who you want. It's the only area where we condemn someone. If they're into firearms, we condemn them as though it's worse. Whereas with every other hobby, or with every other profession or every other amateur competitive sport, we say, hey, it's great. The more time they spend with it, the more they futz around with their equipment, the more practice they get. But with firearms, all of us, we want to say, that's a red flag. So we want more untrained people. We want people who are less familiar with their firearms. This is who these laws will disproportionately affect first, and then they come for you. Now, why is Visa, MasterCard, Amex, why? I don't know about Diners Club.
They're all about it.
Yes. This exists in a vacuum. No, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. So the standard first was created by the Switzerland-based International Standards Organization. ISO is what we'll use for short in the future. Now, they set a lot of financial industry rules. Now, it's not a law. It's not a law.
Right. They
suggest it. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and then Visa, MasterCard, American Express give your private information over to the government. See how that works? If it's unconstitutional, there are ways around it. And the new code was originally proposed by the Amalgamated Bank of New York, and they brand themselves as a socially responsible lender. Sorry, I mispronounced asshole. And congressional Democrats, of course, they pressed credit card companies to implement the new code. So think about this for a second. They want to do away with the filibuster. They want to pack the court, right? They want to do away with these institutions that they blame you for not trusting. And when that doesn't work, when we have a Supreme Court case, for example, that relates to New York, that it's unconstitutional for them to not allow you to carry, they find workarounds. In New York, workarounds were every single zone, unless otherwise expressed, is a firearm-free zone, or they send letters. And I mean this quite literally. Like socialist letters to Santa Claus. American Express, Elizabeth Warren wrote this.
She smoke signaled it.
Yes. She wrote a cookbook about it.
Yes.
Any idea how racist that is? There's zero Native American, and she wrote the cookbook, Pow Wow Chow. So she wrote this to the credit card companies, to American Express, Elizabeth Warren. We write to urge American Express to support the creation of a new merchant category code, MCC, which is the term you'll hear right now to sort of whitewash it, for gun and ammunition retail outlets, and to seek answers to reports that the company has obstructed efforts to create such a category, which would be an important step towards ending financial system support for gun trafficking, gun violence, and domestic terrorism. Now, let's be really clear. Domestic terrorists, we've heard that from the FBI, from Ray, from multiple. It always is hard for me to keep track of which official said what, but conservatives are the biggest threat. They're domestic terrorists.
Well, with the inventive square, at least all the gangbangers can use credit cards to purchase their illegal guns.
Yes.
That's what this assumes, because it's like, we're going to end gun violence and we're going to end gun trafficking. Right.
Anything I've ever bought illegally is with a credit card.
Well, you want the points.
Yes, exactly.
It's like 10 times points if you use it on an illegal substance.
Plus, it's kind of a flex. I like to show them my Centurion card.
Yeah, exactly. You get 500. I get a lot of Sky Miles for fentanyl.
Yes.
Do you have a white card? I like a white substance.
But see, this is what happens.
Amex White.
When you say slippery slope, it's not an intellectual fallacy if you're already on that slope, right? Gun show loophole. We've told you it's not really a loophole. As a matter of fact, this is something I have had to use the gun show loophole. Why? Let me give you an example. Walther sometimes have to send me new products to sample, and sometimes I'll get multiple products, and then one time one was for you, and so what I do is I ship to me, then I do a legal transfer, half Asian, creates a document, we draft it up, where it's legally binding, there's your gun show loophole.
Yeah.
You cannot find crimes that have been committed, and certainly not to a statistical significance, of people getting their guns through gun show loopholes. So they said it's a gun show loophole. Let's close the gun show loophole. Then they expand and say, it's the online loophole, which really isn't an online loophole. It just means that you can purchase it illegally. And now they say, well, it's not a loophole. Let's just track legal purchases of firearms if we think, I don't know, it's a little bit over the limit and we want to draw suspicion. Right? Visa, MasterCard, Amex, you have international government pressures. Elizabeth Warren, congressional Democrats, and it's not even a law. And now your information is available to the federal government. Do you see this game? This is why I'm a recovering libertarian.
Yeah.
There is no line anymore between corporations and government. They are the government. By the way, just to give you an example, Amex received over $3.3 billion in bailouts.
Oops. Have they paid it all back?
Holy crap, are you serious?
Yeah, none of them are immune from these bailouts. So what happens is they get bailouts from the government, and the government says, you better play ball. They are effectively like the mob, and then the media blames you for not trusting the institutions. Well, why the hell do you think that is? Airlines, banks, health insurance companies, are these industries that you're huge fan? Because they are the ones who are the largest recipients of bailouts. And then, of course, they have to play ball, and you say, well, my freedoms are just being removed more and more and more. Bailouts. Then they get a letter from Elizabeth Warren, and it's not a law, but your information is now available to the government. That's how it works.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.